Hey everyone, welcome to Couchbase Coding with Matthew Groves. This is a 10-minute slice of my day as a developer advocate, live every day. Check out old episodes on YouTube. Email me or tweet me your comments or questions, and I might even talk about them on the air next time. Okay, so I'm continuing here, giving you a sneak preview of the upcoming Couchbase Connect conference in New York. It's going to happen on May 9th and May 10th. Lots of great technical Couchbase content from our engineers and also from our customers and our partners who are going to be there as well. So stay tuned to the end of the episode. I'll give you that coupon code again. So today I want to talk about the other workshop that's happening. So I spent a little time talking about nickel yesterday, giving you a quick introduction to nickel, and you're going to see a lot more nickel if you go to that full day workshop. The other workshop going on is actually called the Data Platform Workshop, and this talks about a number of the other capabilities that Couchbase has, including nickel, but also including things like full text search, eventing, key value access, I think even analytics and other stuff like that. So I wanted to spend some time today giving you a preview of what you might see when it comes to full text search. So that's what I've got on the screen here. Well, actually, it's not what I got on the screen here. What I've got on the screen here is a nickel query. And this is sort of a naive approach to a text-based search. And in my early days of writing against relational databases, I would do things like this. My early naive days, I would say, okay, we're doing a text search for a keyword. Let's just use the like statement in SQL. And so I want to find, in this case, the landmarks that match a certain keyword. Maybe this is something a user typed in, like a search engine sort of thing. They're trying to find some place that has breakfast, that offers breakfast. So they'll just do a search here, and we can get, okay, we've got 84 results. So there's 84 landmarks here that offer something, that have the word breakfast somewhere in the description. So this might at first seem like a good approach. We can just use nickel to do this type of search. But now suppose I want to find some place that has a bed and breakfast. Or let's even get more, let's just start there. Bed and breakfast. Okay? So now it's one result, this black line in, that has a bed and breakfast. But what about a bed ampersand breakfast? Well, now I get zero results. And what if it's something like, oh, they capital B for breakfast. And this is case sensitive. So now it's going to find, okay, this one has breakfast, a different set of results. Right? So what about bed and breakfast, capital B? I'm getting zero results. So this approach kind of breaks down. I could maybe get a little more sophisticated by putting a token in there, or I could say like breakfast and like bed. So it has both breakfast and bed in there. Well, it looks like maybe a syntax error. Oh, yeah, I forgot the first part of this predicate. Content like. Okay, so that's maybe in the right direction, but this can get really, really complicated, and it's just not a good approach when you're doing these types of language-aware searches where casing might be involved, or pluralization, or maybe a typo or something like that. So instead of doing this approach, what we can do is we can create a full text index on our data. So I'll go over to the search tab. I'm going to add an index, and let's just call this, I don't know, Matt's index for now. And we're going to index the travel sample bucket. Now by default it's going to say, okay, well I'm going to assume you have a type field in there. That's how I'm going to identify a type. You can also specify types based on the key of the documents with separators or with regex expression. I'll keep it a type for now, nice and simple. And one thing you might have noticed that appeared here is this index definition preview. So when you create an index in Couchbase for full text search, you define that index via this big JSON object. And so we'll talk about what that means more in just a second. All right, then we want to actually do a type mapping. So we want to search specific fields in the document. So we got this default here that's checked. What this means is it's going to search every field in the document, in every document, in fact. And we don't really want to do that. In some cases you might want to do that, but this is going to be a big index, and it's going to include a lot of fields we don't need to search. So let's add a different type mapping. I'm going to say just limit this to landmark. So up here I said this is how we identify a type, and this is the value I want to index. Just type equals landmark. And I only want to index specified fields. All right? So now I have to actually add those fields. and you can map down to fields, because in JSON you can have lots of different hierarchies here. We're just going to add the one child field, and I believe it was content was the name of the field. And it's text. There's other options for search here. The one most interesting I'm not going to cover today is GeoPoint. Maybe I'll cover that in a future live stream. That's a newly supported feature in 5.5. And I'm also going to store. I want to store the results of this index, and we'll see why that's important later as well. So go ahead and do that. I'm going to uncheck default. I really don't need that in there anymore. Uncheck. What's happening? Uncheck. Why isn't that unchecking? Okay. Don't know why. Okay. Did I forget to click something? I don't know. All right, so I'll go ahead. There's some other options here as well. Let's go ahead and create that index and see what happens. Hopefully, if this takes too long, it's because I couldn't uncheck that default. Looks like it's taking a little longer than normal. That's a bit strange. Let's see if I can go back here and figure that out. Okay, well, doing it live, folks, so I don't know what was going wrong there with that. I usually am able to uncheck the default, and it'll still stay there, but I can uncheck it, so I'll have to look into that at some point. But that should be enough for us to actually demonstrate the search. So this is going to, we're going to wait for it to populate at 60% right now. And once it gets 100%, that means that it's gone through the whole set of documents and it's indexed them based on my criteria I've specified. And as you make more changes to these documents, this index will update, but it'll just be incremental updates. It's not going to have to re-index the entire bucket every single time. Okay, so we're at 100% there. Now I mentioned that index definition, and you can actually even show the curl of that. But the point of this index definition is to show you the details of what make up this index. Now I didn't go through all these fields and specify them, so a lot of this is the default index values. But what you can do with this is you can save this to a JSON file or a text file or something along those lines, and then you can share this with your team or check it into source control or both, and you can usually make this part of your CI/CD pipeline. So if you're going to create an index as part of your deployment of Couchbase, you can automate that. And it's showing here doing it with a curl statement. You can do it manually with Postman, of course, which I've done in the past, but you can automate this, make it part of a PowerShell script or whatever you need to do. It's just calling this REST endpoint, which I touched on in an earlier episode, to create an index or to update an existing index. So that's what this index definition is for. Some other uses for it as well, but I find that to be very useful. Okay, so let's try this search again here. So you can actually, typically you're going to be executing these index queries via the SDK, the Couchbase SDKs, or via the REST endpoints, but you can do it right here in the UI. Makes for a nice demonstration. So just hit search, and you can see that it's returning results. Not just this document has breakfast in it, but it also has a scoring mechanism. We can rank these and say this one is the most relevant to the search for breakfast, and so on. So it's much closer to a search engine like you'd see with DuckDuckGo or Google or Bing or things like that. And so I can now type in something like bed and breakfast and search, and you can see we've got different search results here that are coming up with both bed and the word breakfast. Now notice it's actually showing the content here and highlighting the content. That's because I checked that store box when I creating the index. So it's actually going to store the results here and return. And if you're using the SDK to consume this data, it'll actually highlight the terms as well. And there's some other things we could do. We could also change timeout. There's a whole bunch of documentation here around the actual query syntax. So you have things like specific phrases and Boolean syntax and required keywords. This sort of syntax should look familiar to you if you've ever used any other sort of full text search engine before. And just a quick side note here, full text search, if I can find it here, actually uses this engine called Believe, which was implemented in Go. This is an open source project, You can find it here on GitHub at Believe search/Believe. So this is the underlying engine that Couchbase is using. So it's not just delegating off to Elastic or Lucene or anything like that. It's a built-in search engine using Believe behind the scenes. All right, so that's it for today with full text search. That's just a quick demo of that. If you want to know more, send me an email or contact me on Twitter up there, and I'll talk more about full text search in the future. I want to switch over to this screen right here to talk about Connect New York coming up May 9th through 10th. And there's a code down there at the bottom. Go to that URL, enter that code, Dev Advocacy CC18. You'll get free admission to the main conference if you use that code. So check that out, and that should be an exciting couple days of technical content, including workshops, full text search, nickel, and more, which I'll be covering in future episodes. So come on back tomorrow for another episode of Couchbase Coding, and thanks for watching.